Hello, everybody. Welcome to Stars Speak. You may have seen some of the posts on Facebook, but we're here with Chicago North Shore Women's Rugby, representing Chicago's WPL team. And so our goal here is to introduce everybody to some of our alums. We've got a great history with our alumni and as well as just the team background, but we wanted to talk to some of our alums, get some advice from them, and talk about different topics that we felt like were pertinent to the rugby community today. So we're lucky to have both Kate Daly and Jenny Liu on the call today, two legends in North Shore, as well as probably many USA Rugby people know them as well. But do you guys mind introducing yourselves and maybe giving me a little background on where you are now, what you're doing?
Sure. Jenny, you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
No, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So excited. Well, I obviously am Kate Daly, and I am currently coaching the head coach at Penn State University. I also am lucky enough to be an assistant coach with the 15s women's national team. And I am currently sitting in the middle of Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania during this pandemic. It's very exciting. Did I miss anything?
Wonderful. Great job.
Okay.
Well, anything she must, I'll get. So
Great.
My name's Jenny Liu. Both Kate and I went to Penn State. We did not play together. But we did have the pleasure of playing together at North Shore, and that's where we also. I don't know if we ever co-captains at the same time, but we helped lead the team and we player coached the team for a while, and we are now coaching together at the U.S. national team level on the 15 squad. And right now, that's like the only official. I like do kind of like mercenary coaching, I guess, for other groups, but that's the only official team that I coach for right now. And I'm in Boston and all locked up and stocked up, and everybody's safe and sound. So it's all good.
A leader for hire, I guess, is what you are. And then I didn't introduce Katie, but Katie's here. She lives here, so it's kind of hard to avoid her being on this call. And also, she's great and really smart, and probably will have some funny questions. But actually, you just had one that came to you.
Yeah, what is your guys' stock-up food? Like #1 stock-up food for COVID?
Very snacky. Went and got some Costco Doritos and a lot of breads, because that's a hot commodity now. Because
I'm gonna go with I definitely did like the Costco Sam's run and got like the big triple packs of bacon. Especially important now that the meat industry is slowing down. So I feel like I got ahead of that one. So
did you freeze your bacon?
What?
Did you freeze the bacon?
Exactly.
Yeah, yes, of course. I mean, that's a valid question. Totally valid.
Yeah.
In my experience with cooking in general, that is a very valid question.
Yeah. Did you? How many? What was it? You stocked up probably eggs was your biggest. How many eggs did you have?
Like 7 dozen eggs. We're down to 4.
That's a lot.
I've had no eggs.
Ate a lot of eggs.
That is a good one too, though. That's gonna slow down also.
Yeah.
So important to stock up.
All right, I guess back to the purpose of why we're here, but I kind of wanted to first delve into a little bit of your history in North Shore. I know you because I got to play with you my first year, but can you guys tell us a little bit more about your history with the team, kind of how you got started and how long you were involved?
I have a really great story with my first interaction with the North Shore team. At the time I was living in South Bend, Indiana, and I came up for like a Wednesday practice, and it ended up being like inside the building that is next to the field that we used to practice on. What was that field called? Do you guys still practice?
Revere.
Yeah.
So it was in the building right next to Revere in this really small-ish room.
Mm-hmm.
And so it didn't seem like anybody knew what I was doing. So Jenny's like, why don't you teach them jumping? And I was like, okay, we can do some line out stuff. So Jenny, not introducing me, goes, she's like, okay, this is Kate. She's going to teach you line outs. And then,
That's an introduction.
Yeah, okay, that's not an introduction at all. And I'd like thought about playing with North Shore. I hadn't really figured it out yet, obviously, because it was kind of a long commute. up to Chicago. And so I stepped in pretty confidently, and obviously North Shore is always full of like big personalities, and kind of the vibe I got was like, who is this lady? Like, what is she doing? Right now? But I have to say, like, after that, everything went pretty smoothly. I mean, it went smoothly for me. I don't know if it went smoothly for everybody else, but after that, I felt, like one of the team.
Trial by fire.
I think it took probably like another like 3 to 6 until I left for people to really get used to me. But that's my first interaction, like my first real interaction with the team at a practice.
Nice.
But
well, sorry about that.
It's okay. It was pretty funny. I was just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna teach some lineouts and stuff, and it's gonna go great. And I mean, I guess it went fine.
But it did go great because you know your stuff.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
It's like anything. It takes a little while. You're an acquired taste, Kate.
Well, that's good. I mean, I won't deny that. Like, I was probably the person that did most things wrong there in terms of it, like interacting. One of my first coaching experiences, kind of. So, I went up from there, hopefully. North Shore taught me a lot about peer coaching.
Great.
That's good.
We'll delve into that, yeah.
Yeah. But Jenny can probably give the dates because I don't really remember. But I think I played at North Shore for 2 full seasons. The season that we won the national championship, and I think the season that we lost in the final, I believe. Is that right? Or just we lost?
I think
we lost to Oregon in 2014.
Yeah, we weren't there for 2014.
Yeah, you guys were at USA camp, if I remember correctly.
2013, I was there for sure.
Yeah, 2011 was the national championship.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was the year before I got there then.
Yeah, you were there in 2010 as well because we got 3rd place that year.
Okay.
I think that was Camp North Shore.
Okay. I don't really remember.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Thank you,
Jenny. Thank you for the timeline. Always really forget. So I was there for about 2 seasons. It was actually a kind of a sad ending for me because I pretty much left in 2014, and they happened to have like a USA camp right over the national championship or the semifinals, which was that game against Orsu, and Jenny and I couldn't be there. And so like the games before that, or the playoffs before that, like we just weren't around. I think we went to the round of 16 and round of 8 in Pittsburgh. Because Jenny and I were both in Pennsylvania at the time, but that was my last real interaction with North Shore. So it was kind of an anticlimactic end for me, and it was kind of sad to watch the team play while we were at USA camp and kind of missing that experience with everybody. But that was kind of a brief timeline of my time with North Shore. Great time, learned a lot.
Yeah, and then for me, Farrah Douglas, one of our esteemed alumni, stalked me back into playing. So I moved to Chicago probably, 2007. And I was like, super into starting my career. So I wasn't actually planning on playing rugby that season. But she was relentless in texting and stalking and emailing, and got me to come back out to practice. And I was like, well, why not? What more could you ask for than 40 awesome people and the sport of rugby? So that just pulled me back in. And then I was in it for like the next 8 or 9 years and did a lot of different roles for the team. Did the recruiting and was a captain, player coach, PR stuff, the marketing stuff, helped with the website. And I moved away, I can't remember, probably 2000. It was probably around the same time as Kate. And I do remember that, watching that national championship game, and like it wasn't really a sad ending because we were missing everybody, and obviously we had strived so hard with the team, and to not be able to finish out the season was obviously a sad way to end it.
Yeah. And I can speak from people who were, so Katie and I, that was our first year, for sure. And so we were at that game. And it was definitely a tough one because, you guys were kind of the leaders, both the hearts and minds of the team. And then have you guys be away was definitely tough.
Yeah, we probably didn't do, I would say we didn't do a great job. Probably learned a lot about creating depth in our roles since we were 9 and 10. So that was like poor planning on our part. And we probably didn't really set the team up for success on our exit. Unfortunately, we probably not the best. We didn't do the best.
At least you learned a lesson, so that's good.
That does remind me. I think that I was the match secretary the one year that I was there or something. I remember organizing things like travel and fields and stuff at some point. I did something along logistics, which is surprising, I know, but I did. I don't know.
As you do. I don't remember that, but that's cool.
I did something.
All right. Well, I've got a couple, one a more serious question, and then I have a couple silly questions for you. But you guys did both captain and player coach together. Can you talk about that experience specifically with North Shore, and then kind of how it helped you to your roles today? And we'll get more into that, but kind of how it started, gave you the platform to what you're doing now. Or did it give you a platform?
Well, I think that every team that you are on, you can take away a lot of information about the way that you interact with teams of different levels, the way that you can be a supporting role versus a leading role in different teams. Because I certainly wasn't necessarily in a leadership position, like a true leadership, like voted on or anything with North Shore at first. So I really was in kind of a supporting role and just kind of supporting Jenny in her in our player coaching, our peer coaching. But it definitely helping coach a women's team while you're playing is definitely a unique experience. It certainly allows you to have a better understanding how to interact with people and how your on-field and off-field messaging really matters. But also, I think you have a different perspective on how much your teammates care about what's going on with the team. Like, you're a little bit more removed as a coach. So you don't have the same insight into how everybody's feeling about different things like selections and people playing different positions and the game that's coming up. You just don't have the same insight as you do as a coach to, say, like a college team or even like the women's national team. So it definitely, I think, opens your eyes to a different perspective, opens your eyes to different ways of interacting with your teams. And much like in like the daily workplace, like you have to work with your peers. It's much more like that than it is like a top-down leadership. I would say for sure. Jenny, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. It's definitely. I don't think anyone really sets out to be a player coach. It's really out of necessity that you get into that position. But I definitely learned a lot about coaching from that experience. And I learned a lot about coaching from Kate because Kate was more experienced at coaching. I think you were coaching Notre Dame at the time, and you were being mentored by Pete Steinberg, who's he was my first coach at Penn State. And I don't think he was your first coach, but he was your coach at Penn State.
He was my coach at Penn State, yeah.
Yeah, so just learning a lot about how to periodization for practice planning and how to work to figure out how to plan out a season, each individual practice. That was one of my first coaching experiences, and I thought it was great to have a partner like Kate because we balance each other out in a lot of different ways. Like, she had a lot more coaching experience, and then I guess I could corral people a little bit better and had a lot more background in terms of the culture of North Shore, so I understood that aspect a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And I was more like, I don't understand why you're not doing this. Or, I don't understand why you're not here. So that was that was definitely a big learning for me. And I definitely, the thing is that I actually coach quite similar to the way that I play, like the way that I interact with people on the field. at that time, not so much anymore, but at that time, the way that I interacted on the field in terms of like the information I gave was very similar to the way that I coach. Like I see and say the same things as a coach as that I did as a player, just like my tone is a lot different as a coach. As like a player to Trout would know, I probably yelled at him more than once on the field. Maybe.
We may still reference that from time to time.
From time to time. One time I remember Jenny on the field, and she looks up from her breakdown, and I'm supposed to be playing 10, and I'm like, nowhere to be found. And then I go, oh, and Jenny just rolls her eyes at me and just throws the ball as far as she can. I'm probably like 30 meters away. And I'm just like, because I'm talking to somebody else about something and not actually doing what my job is. But it's definitely, I definitely look at the game similarly as a coach as I did as a player. And to be honest, I don't actually think that I realized that was Jenny's first like coaching role, because I mean, she's so meticulous about everything that she does, that obviously she was really easy to work with and obviously more organized than me. Do you still have that document of every single practice that we had?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like
it's on the Google Drive.
Yeah. She meticulously documented every drill that we did at every practice. And I think everybody had access to it so that they could see what we were doing, if they missed anything. So she definitely one-ups me there for sure, because I've never done that. Sometimes I think I'm making up like a new activity, and my players would be like, we did this like 3 months ago. And I'm like, oh, I thought it was new. It seemed like such a good idea. Such a fresh new idea.
Let's say you both ended up in the role of being player coaches, and I think it's something that's common at club level for sure. How did you balance not only becoming a leader on the team, but your own developing your own level of play? Because you don't have anybody that's necessarily there to critique you. Like, you don't have another coach for yourself. So how did you guys both continue to progress?
I think that we largely did that on our own time and together. So I mean, part of the reason that I ended up moving to Chicago, and probably one of the only reasons that I made it to the 2014 World Cup, is because I had the opportunity to train with Jenny. Like, I owe her my whole 2014 World Cup experience, because I definitely wouldn't have made it without her. So largely, a lot of our individual development, I think we did on the side. Not that we weren't like doing things at practice and trying to get better at practice, but like in terms of like the small technical skills, we did a lot of that on our own. We were inviting people at one point, but no one really showed up. So I showed up like once. I think that Aaron used to show up occasionally. So like every once in a while people would show up, but we definitely were pretty committed to doing stuff on our own to continue improving.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. We relied on each other to keep pushing ourselves, and obviously we got a lot out of practice, because when you teach someone how to do something, you're learning a lot. So we grew a lot in that sense, and also working in our leadership skills, which is hugely important. And then using select side opportunities and other playing opportunities to push ourselves. Not that obviously we were challenged in North Shore and trying to organize and trying to, get a team moving in the same direction, but to add extra challenges, we would play for the Midwest, or there was one time, oh my God, we played ITTs, interterritorial tournaments. They did away with them a couple years ago, but it was a sevens tournament, and it was Iron Women Rugby.
Oh, I remember that.
We played 6 games in 2 days, and we had 7 players. It was our motto was, "Don't cry, don't stop."
Don't cry. Don't quit, don't cry. And then we had 6 players at the end.
We had 6 players at the end. That was like the last game. And then our coach was like, "Why do they keep giving me these sub cards? Like, I don't have any subs." Just throw them to the side.
So funny. We also had this rule that if it was above 30 degrees that we had to go outside and do skills, right? Was it 30 degrees?
It was 20 degrees.
It was 20.
Oh. That was our cutoff. So we would do skills with like the snow sticking on the ball and like flinging them at each other, getting hit in the face with snow. But that was
kind of unproductive.
I don't know. I thought
Grit.
Yeah.
You built
You got the
I've gotten really soft at this point though, because it was like 40 degrees out, and I was like, oh, it's kind of cold to go out and run.
No, I definitely would not do that now. 20 degrees. I'm like, ugh, I don't know.
You know, sometimes I tell my players, I'm like, oh, you guys should go work on your skills, blah blah blah, and then I remember that we did skills in the snow, and I was like, wow, we were something else. Like, I don't know what we were thinking. Like, I don't even know.
We would squat in random university gyms. We would find basements to pass in when it was too cold out. So that's we just did what we had to do.
All right, I have a couple more silly questions that are North Shore related, and then we'll get into our larger topic of leadership. So Kate, when you were at North Shore, you had a nickname known as Grumpy Cat. Can you tell the fans kind of why that was your name, and then is it something that still applies to you today?
I mean, I think there's like a couple of reasons why I was called Grumpy Cat. I think that Nova is on here, and Nova actually called me Pigpen, I believe. Right? Is that right? She definitely, which I think was more appropriate, just because my car was really dirty because I was always commuting up to Chicago, right? That's really hard, okay?
Yes.
Like, your car gets dirty when you're throwing stuff in it all the time. But generally, I was Grumpy Cat just because, like, when I was at practice, when we were practicing, I wasn't, like, super, I guess, I wouldn't say I was, like, bubbly and nice, but, and I was generally very serious and like, stop messing up, like, just stop. I was like, why are we mad? Like, I just had really high expectations of everybody.
Oh, let me put it this way. We had a signal. So everyone agreed to this, is that when Kate was being too mean or too big of an asshole, people would do this.
Sorry.
And like, if people agreed, they would touch their nose, and then Kate would notice that people were touching their noses, and then she'd be like, "Oh, okay, I gotta tone it down."
I gotta tone it down. So I wasn't like unaware. I wasn't unaware. But generally, it's just because when I was at practice, I was like very much at practice. And it was like, I mean, I drove like an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours in traffic to get there, right? Mm-hmm. So if I was at practice, everybody was going to be serious in practice. Kind of the way that I took it, which probably wasn't great because everybody, had lots of different things in life. And I have to say that I learned a lot of empathy, a lot of compassion for people's own life choices and stuff, which goes a long way. Something that I definitely wasn't natural to me, and something that I continually have to develop on a regular basis. I would have to say it's not a natural thing for me, unfortunately, which it should be.
Great.
It's not. I tried.
You've gotten so much better.
I have gotten so much better. My players actually tell me that I should be like stricter and meaner. So I feel like maybe I've gone like too far in one direction. Like maybe I need to swing back into the middle. It only took me like 10 years to get too far to the one way.
Nice. All right, Jenny. One thing that was pretty common whenever you used to do a pregame speech for North Shore, you would always say, "It's a beautiful day to play rugby, no matter what the weather was." I want to know, has it ever not been a beautiful day to play rugby for you?
Oh, well, like Kate said, we've gotten soft in our old age. So like, I would say if it's raining or like 35 and below, it's starting not to look, it's a good day to play rugby. It's not a great day to play rugby, but when you're playing rugby, it's always pretty good.
I was gonna say it's probably always still a good day to play rugby, but it's not always a good day to coach rugby, if that makes sense. Because it's way worse having to coach in 35-degree weather than playing.
Oh yeah.
So it's always a good day to play. Especially now that I don't play that much. So pretty much just take every opportunity that comes along to have a good time playing.
Yeah, I think it takes me back to, I think it was 2014 playoffs when it was that mud pit.
Yes, I love that game. That was a great day to play rugby.
Everybody came off and was just covered in mud. I think that's so Kate's caveman.
Like wash their jerseys on rocks in the river. Yeah. That was awesome.
Getting in the creek to try to clean yourself off. Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
I know we should have found that picture of Kate to show to the world, but oh well.
Oh, the
I
Sasquatch.
thought about putting it in my background. I thought about putting it in my background.
All right. So now to kind of delve more into the bigger topic of leadership. You guys both have a lot of experience, both as coaches, leaders, also in your professional work. But can you guys kind of describe your leadership style for us? Do you have one? Do you identify one?
I would say that your leadership style kind of progresses just like any other skill. But my leadership style is very much about trying to get people to take initiative and engage in their own personal development. So I really am someone that will try and give direction, but I really do think it's important for people to take ownership and really own what they're doing, because obviously then they're going to care about it a lot more. So I think that's a big part of leadership. Another big part of leadership that I think is just about being and showing a lot of selflessness, like always being willing to put the team before yourself, even as like a coach or a leader. Because I mean, that's probably the things that make teams work the most successfully, is when people are committed to the common goal and they're willing to put that before themselves in general. So those are probably like two things. I don't know if they call that a style, but they're two very important things to me from a leadership standpoint.
Yeah, nice.
Mm. And for me, I'd say that, and this has nothing to do with Grumpy Cat, but I would say my style is like cat herding. So like you can't be too forceful. You can't make them do anything. But if you treat the whole lot with enough love and respect, then they'll follow you on their own.
Makes me think of cats.
Cats, lots of cats.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know actually being a leader is very much about like hurting, not necessarily cats, but maybe sheep sometimes, maybe like way angrier animals sometimes. Like you're hurting humans. You're trying to herd humans in a direction for sure. By trying to give them like common purpose and a common goal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you had a question?
Oh, hey, you actually mentioned this a little bit earlier. Would you consider yourself, you said you don't consider yourself a natural leader. How is it something that, other than the sort of seeing other people's reactions, but how did you find those skill sets that didn't come to you naturally? And then Jenny Lou, do you consider yourself a natural leader?
I've always been someone that's willing to step into a void that I felt like needed to be filled. So I wouldn't say I was a natural leader, but I wouldn't say that I was always I wouldn't even know if I would consider myself a good leader now. It's definitely still like developing in terms of, all of the things that you can do to be a good leader. Which is interesting why you guys chose to talk to me about leadership. I'm not, but it's fine. But I've always been willing to fill a void. So like co-coaching with Jenny, like that was, no one asked us to do that, or maybe someone did, but I don't remember. But I would never have been like, no, because it needed to be done. Like a really good example is like in high school, we didn't have a team, and then we had a team, and then I was like, oh, I want to do something in the spring. So I got the team together to do something in the spring. So I guess my leadership has always been motivated by filling a need. And so if I felt like there was a need that needed to be filled, then I've never had a problem stepping into that. But I don't know if I would say people would look at me and be like, oh yeah, she's definitely a leader. It's more like, oh, she's getting stuff done that needs to get done, which is a different form of leadership.
Yeah. I'd say I'm a little bit similar in the fact that I'm not like the first person to put my hand up and say, like, yeah, I want to be the leader on this team. But if something needs to be done, similar to Kate, I have no problem stepping in that role. And I guess like in rugby, kind of a natural thing, being like a bossy rat terrier scrum half type. Like to want to get everyone moving in the same direction, on and off the field. So I think that just due to the nature of the role and due to the nature of my personality, I kind of like lead from the back versus the front and kind of like gather everybody in. That's more of my style. And I enjoy working more in the shadows versus like, the one on the soapbox giving the hurrah speech. But yeah, so that's my style.
I mean, I remember you doing some pretty good speeches when we played together.
Always very thoughtful. You could always tell that she took time beforehand to think about what she was going to say.
Mm-hmm.
Never off the cuff. maybe, but it never seemed like it. I don't know.
The ideas were in there for a while, you knew.
Yeah, it was just marinating on them. You could tell, probably for the whole season. Planning it out game by game.
Well, that's what I do for a living. I'm a writer, so gotta plan it out.
So next question. So this may be a little bit tougher, or maybe not. So what's something that you struggled to understand as a leader? What are some, or if that's too hard, what are some common mistakes you see new leaders make when they're stepping into a role?
I would say assuming everybody's goals are oriented the same way, assuming behavior, assuming expectations. Probably the biggest thing that I struggle with is being really clear, having a lot of clarity around expectations, because I'm much more of like, I don't understand how you don't know that kind of person. Like it doesn't make sense to me, like how you couldn't even know that. So like that was definitely a big learning for me, and something I still have to work on I actively work on my ability to be clear and providing clarity to some degree. But to some degree, I feel like you have to leave that a little bit open, because people have to kind of discover what expectations they're willing to work with, and like what the behaviors are that they need to make themselves successful, without just being like, no, this is X, Y, ABC, XYZ that you need to do if you want to be a part of this team, that kind of thing. Because I mean, it doesn't always work for everybody. So, and then the other part of it for me was understanding the need for flexibility and compassion and empathy and all of those things. Those were always big learnings for me, and things that whenever I have a conversation with someone, I always have to remind myself a little bit sometimes to do those things, to like think through it differently before I like jump into something. But definitely, those are definitely some of the mistakes that I've made, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's common.
Yeah, pretty common.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, the advice I would give a young leader is to find a leadership style that suits you. And I think a common mistake is that people mold themselves into an image of a leader, of someone maybe they emulate, or what they think a leader should be, and it doesn't come authentically to them. So then it comes off like feeling unnatural, or it doesn't make them as empowered as it could be. So for example, so I'm coaching the Scrum Halves right now, and some people are like kind of like the barky rat terriers, and then some people like that doesn't work for them. But like you don't have to be this certain kind of player. You can have a quick word to the side to your pack and be just as effective. Like you don't always have to be screaming at people. So that's just one example of just like being able to mold yourself into something that fits who you are authentically.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. And I would say for young leaders, and like if people really want a leadership role, is for them to really understand why they want that role. Like if that's something that is really important to them. Because generally, if you're coming at a leadership role for yourself, I sometimes don't know if it's going to go so well for the people around you. So really to be introspective and reflect about why you want that role and how you plan to bring the best version of yourself to the people that you're leading. How are you going to do it? And I mean, some teams, like it's voted on, right? And and then your teammates vote on you and you're like, oh, I'm in this new position, I don't really know what to do. So like taking a second to reflect on like why you think your teammates chose you, and then just being that best version that they see on a regular basis, because obviously they picked you for a reason. So being confident that you have the skills that they're looking for as well. But I think knowing why is really important. And I don't think that people shouldn't lead for themselves, but I do think that it's really important as a leader is to understand that you're leading for other people. Like there isn't a ton you get out of leadership. It's like a little bit lonely to be a leader sometimes. You don't have to always have people to rely on. So it's really like, do you want to do this for other people? Because that's really why you lead. So really understanding what you want to get out of it is important.
Yeah, exactly. To piggyback off of that, you have to be willing to do the things in the shadows that you're never going to get credit for. Mm-hmm. Like if you're being a leader, to be that person and to have that like ego trip of being voted whatever, then that's not really a reason to do it, and you're going to get stuck with all of the shit work that the leaders have to do, and you're not going to get that stuff done. So you have to be willing to, do the stuff where you'll never get credit and make other people look good, and it has to be about the whole group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'd 100% agree with that. I think a lot of people go into leadership, like Kate said, not fully thinking through how big of an impact it's going to have on everybody. And it can be really easy to be selfish when you're a leader, right? Because you're like, I'm in charge, so just do what I say, do what I want, right? And that's a lot of power. But I think, like you said, Kate, if you don't have the picture of the whole group in mind, it's not going to turn out well. Because eventually either the group's not going to enjoy it, you're not going to enjoy it, or there's going to be some kind of mismatch that doesn't line up. I did have a question kind of built off of that. So one thing that I've found is when trying to help develop new leaders, sometimes you have people who are natural leaders, natural people that people look up to, but they're not interested in that leadership role. How do you try to help those people understand, what they can do? Do you try to push somebody into a leadership role, or do you let them find it themselves?
So I kind of like to think about as a coach, I like to think about my team as like, you have people that are leaders who are maybe better suited for leadership roles, like a uniform leadership role. And then you have people that are influencers that are going to be leaders no matter what. And being okay with those people being influencers and just making sure to have the conversations to let them know that, hey, I know you're not in a leadership role, but you are still a leader. Like, you don't have to have a role to be a leader. Nobody has to have a role to be a leader. Like, everybody can take initiative to fill voids that need to be filled, right? Like me and Jenny, or me asking Jenny to go do skills, is me showing leadership by giving Jenny the opportunity to get better, right? So that is like a very small, that's a very small way to show leadership. Or the person who breaks down the field without being asked, that's showing leadership. And I think it's important to understand that teams need those leaders along with the actual voted on leadership roles and stuff like that. And that it's important for teams to have influencers, people that are like a very, very big core of the team. Like, they're very important to the team, but they have a lot of influence and they have a lot of say over what happens. And, but they don't necessarily have that role, and them understanding the impact they have is really important. And I think as long as the leaders who are in a role understand that they can engage those people and help them impact the team in a positive way, that's when those kind of relationships all work out the best. Really interestingly, so I was the captain. I was a co-captain at the World Cup in 2014. But prior to that, at Penn State, I didn't have any leadership roles at all. I was never a captain. I was never a selector. I was never on like our executive college board thing. I never did any of that. Like my assumption all through college was that there were people on the team that are going to be way better at that than me. Like hands down, every year I was like, why wouldn't we pick this person? This doesn't make any sense. Like I don't get it. Like, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do it because we should all vote for this person. That's essentially like the way that I did that. But that being said, I was still a leader on the team. Like I was at everything. I was always someone that could be like relied on and always a core member. So I like to think that I was a leader at Penn State. And I do have that same conversation with players who are like, well, I really wanted to be captain. And I was like, well, do you really need to be captain? Like, what does that do for you? Right. Versus what can you do for the team in the role that you're in? I didn't sum that up, but Jenny?
No, that's a great answer. In my experience, forcing people who are influencers to take on a leadership role that they do not want is not a good thing. You can help them realize the influence that they have and to help them direct that in a positive way, but I think it's the wrong move to force people into leadership roles if they're really not ready for it or if they're not willing to do it.
So kind of looking forward to the future, both of you now have the opportunity to work with younger players and kind of up and coming talent. Can you give just an idea of like, what are you most excited about when you think about the next generation of rugby players that are coming through?
Most excited about? I think the most exciting thing is that there are so many rugby players in the country that are starting so young, like that, and the commitment to like youth rugby. And I know that does North Shore still do work with like the youth rugby in Chicago?
Yeah, we still do clinics for the high schools and
stuff like that in high school is awesome. And I think things like that are super important. And I get really excited every time I see like women's clubs or men's clubs really reaching into the youth in the high school community. Like, I mean, Jenny didn't play in high school. Lauren, did you play in high school?
No, I was a runner.
Couldn't tell, right? Dan didn't play. Like so many players that I played on with North Shore didn't play in high school. I was probably like one of the first generation of kids that played in high school, and just there's so many now. There's so many, and it's just really exciting to see all of these young kids getting the opportunity to play and getting the opportunity to learn. And I know that things seem really uncertain now, but I think that if as a rugby community, we're all really committed to developing youth rugby and like putting our resources into those things and making those connections for kids to the game of rugby and how special the community is. Like, I think that, things can be even more exciting going forward, but definitely the amount of talent coming out of the high schools and even middle schools and flag programs is really amazing. Really amazing. Like flag rugby, I don't even know. I no clue flag rugby is even a thing. Like it's great.
Yeah, I didn't even know what rugby was in high school. So the fact that there's like age 8 and 9 flag rugby or even tackle is awesome. Like the core skill is developing at a younger age. The rugby IQ is awesome. So I think that the next generation is gonna really surprise us, and the quality of the game is just going to keep going up and up, and we're going to get closer and closer to those tier 1 nations, and we're right there in the cusp right now.
Yeah. Another really exciting thing, despite everything that's going on with USA Rugby, is that we have people like Emily Bidewell in leadership roles that are like strictly for the women's game. Right. So that is super exciting, because then we have someone that's advocating for us at World Rugby to help us get the resources that we need to be able to grow the game on the women's side specifically. So like, that's an amazing thing to see that is pretty new, like in the whole leadership structure of USA Rugby is like diversifying in terms of anybody that's involved at the higher level. So we're lucky, I think, to be in a time where we have someone in that position, and someone as great as Emily too. So that's a really amazing thing for us, I think.
Yeah. No, that's all great. Do you have any more questions? All right, so we've kind of come to the end of our questions, so we're going to open it up to the audience. But before we do, you guys, whether you know it or not, you've had a huge impact on the game, not just in Chicago, but in across the United States. So just know that you're awesome. The reason why I came to North Shore was because we were at an ETC back in 2013, and they were going around in a circle asking everybody to give advice, some of the USA players to give advice on, what you should do. And Kate Daly said, you want to play good rugby, you got to move to where it is. So I moved from middle of nowhere, Indiana to Chicago, and here we are. So that's just one little trickle on how you guys impacted the game already.
I hope that was a good move, Lauren. I hope that worked out.
So far, I mean,
But I would say that again, right, is surrounding yourself with the people that are going to help you be what you want to be is really important, which is why I moved to Chicago too, because Jenny was there, right? So like, same.
All right, I think Stan's got the power, or they just have to unmute themselves and ask a question. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Or if you want to type it in the chat.
Okay, I have a question. So, Kate, you were my first official rugby coach, probably. Like, you took a ton of time with us, our team, like, teaching us about the game, could tell you really loved it. And you, like, commuted to North Shore, and then we got to see you kind of move on and move into, like, from player to coaching and then beyond now. Like, was coaching always kind of in your sights? Like, did you always know after playing you'd want to coach? And, like, what kind of advice did you give to a player who might, like, want to coach in the future?
I don't know if I would say that I had a plan to coach, but I always had a plan to give back to the game, and that was the easiest way for me to do it, given given my understanding of the game and my lack of love for fitness. So I probably would never have been a good ref. Also, I don't know if I'd be like the ref that would be like, that was good enough. It wasn't that forward. So I think that I always had a passion to give back to the game, and coaching just was, I think, the best fit for me to be able to do that, because that is definitely something that's really important to me. And every time I have the opportunity to coach any other team, whether it's like Penn State or like All-Americans or high school All-Americans or even like Rugby PA All-Stars or a Motley high school team for sevens in the summer, like I'll always say yes to those things if my schedule allows, like always. And in terms of people who maybe want to get into coaching, is to just start coaching. Like, take every opportunity, coach flag rugby, go to high school practices, for girls or boys, like it doesn't matter. I remember when I just started coaching at Notre Dame, like that was my real first official coaching. I helped out at Princeton. I don't even know why they gave me that job, Stan, but they did. I'm not sure. I don't really know, but they did. So, but I remember like going to the boys' high school practices in my area, being like, I definitely need to like help myself find some information. So just putting yourself in a position, surrounding yourself by people who can give you the information that you need, is going to be key. Yeah. Like if that's something that you really want to do, is just put yourself in the same room with people that are doing the same thing that you want to do.
Thank you. I can tell, I can just tell, like, being coached by you earlier and then like seeing you talk now and kind of like watching your video about Penn State rugby and just kind of seeing you grow, like I'm pretty inspired about like kind of seeing your dedication and your love for the game. So I have another question for both of you. I'll start with Jenny this time though. So Jenny,
Stan, hold on a second. Stan, hold on. Right. I just am really happy that you're still involved with the game after being a player I first coached. But I feel like I was really, really successful with you in particular. So thank you. Thank you for continuing to be involved. But honestly, I think that, Stan came to the team like being like, yeah, I want to do this forever for the rest of my life. Like before she even started playing in Notre Dame. So I don't have a lot to do with it, but I'm so excited that you're playing with North Shore. I'm so excited that you're involved with the game still and obviously passionate about giving back too. All right, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, thanks. No worries. So Jenny, I never got the privilege of playing with you, right? But I hear you're like the Zen master on the field, right? You're very calm and collected, right? You like bring people's energies right where they need to be. you like before the game, you know, you kind of center people, you focus people. So I guess I'm asking both of you, but Jenny, for words of wisdom for like North Shore, you know, we were like new leaders coming up, right? Like, what would you say to your like counterpart, I guess, at North Shore? You know, kind of words of wisdom would you give them, that sort of thing?
That's tough. Let's see. We touched a little bit about understanding people's motivations and understanding that everybody's coming from a different place, and trying to get people to agree on like a North Star. So like I've kind of like peeked into this stuff at Penn State. So I learned a lot about like visioning and I also work in advertising. So like all about like brand statements and all that stuff, but doing the work up front before the season even begins to agree on a central vision and your North Star, which is very North Shore, but that's also like a brand term. Your North Star of like where you want the team to go. And it's not just something like we want to win a national championship. That's fine. That's good. But how do you want to feel after the season? Like, what would you like to take away from this? And going a little bit deeper than just the outcome. And then getting everyone to agree to that, and then taking steps of accountability. Like, so how are you gonna actually accomplish this? And then like, are you gonna have checkpoints throughout the season? Are you gonna adjust that vision? But I think doing the work up front is one of the most important pieces.
I think another piece of that is understanding that even when you do that work up front, not everybody's going to buy in. Like, especially on a women's team, like you have to understand and have the flexibility to meet people where they are in relation to that vision, right? So you're going to have people that are at different, and even on college teams or high school teams or whatever. And it's a little bit about meeting them where they are within the vision that you're setting, because not everybody is going to always meet the expectations that you want. Mm-hmm. And that is one of my biggest learnings as a coach, is that yes, expectations should be set, but there is fluidity in what people can give, and really understanding and meeting people where they can give. And understanding when you can push people and be like, no, I know you can give more and I know you really want to, so I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to hold you to that expectation.
Yeah. And also like being really mindful about like different pockets of people. Like not everyone, like Kate said, not everyone is going to want to just have a national championship or whatever the goal is, or aspire to the next level. And just making sure that all of those people are like seen and included and heard, and just feel like they're a part of the team too, because it doesn't work without everybody. So you have to have a vision that's big enough, that's not as outcome based, that encompasses like the B-side player and your star player, the captain or whatever, and everybody in between.
I did not do that well when I was at North Shore.
No.
Learned a lot. No, yeah.
It's balance, right?
Balance.
Yeah.
Hey, Jenny, it's Fish. Can you extrapolate on how you do that for those of us who maybe don't know how to balance anything?
Well, like I was saying in the leadership stuff, like it has to be authentic to the group, right? So it's getting everyone to agree to how are we going to balance it. So it's not me giving an answer about how to balance it. It's everybody coming together and problem solving and wanting to problem solve.
And I think a little bit.
I know that doesn't answer your question specifically, Fish, but like that's like really what I believe in, because in every situation you have to mold to the situation.
Yeah. I think one strategy that you could use, Fish, is making a point to having individual conversations with people around like what their commitment level is and like what their expectations are, and actually having the conversation one-on-one about, as a leader, what you can expect of them and what they can expect of you. Like that is one way that you can handle the varying commitment levels as well, which is a lot, right? Which could be a lot. Maybe it's just with certain players, but that is like one way that you you can do that.
And yeah, and part of leadership, as we talked about, is sometimes working in the shadows and making sure, like, a lot of people, like, not everyone's going to respond to one type of stimulus. So if, like, you send a survey out, maybe 50% will do it. But if you, like, reach out individually to people and make sure that they're connected to and they feel heard, then you might get a different response. So just being creative in your problem solving and not just a blanket solution because that doesn't work for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Cool, thanks.
Any other questions out there from the audience?
I'm glad you're on here too, Nova, and I'm really excited to log into your nutrition chat because I've been following your nutrition journey for so long out in Seattle.
Hopefully she didn't hear our talk about the Doritos and the bread.
I mean, I said that I watched all the videos, but I know that's not great.
Yeah, I can use a good probiotic. So Nova, make sure you cover that in the next one.
I'd also like you to talk about the CBD oils on it from a nutrition standpoint and how much. Yeah, so there's some topics for you already. Hey, you are not wrong.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Olga.
Hi, this is Olga checking in. I have a question. Typically, I think, Kate, you were saying that a lot of what being a leader is like being selfless, right? Being willing to sacrifice and give to the team. But my question is, like, how do you find a balance, right? Because, if you're on the field as a player and you're in a leadership role, like, it's also important for you to, like, kind of, like, develop yourself as well. So I guess my question is, how do you find and how do you strike the balance between, like, leading other people while also not at the sake of, like, your own development and your own, like, personal growth?
I think that's a really good question. And I think a question that a lot of, like, say if you're on a college team, like juniors and seniors will struggle with, having less experienced players on the team. I think that at that point, if you're a leader and you're focused on your own development as well, that you have to understand that no matter the situation that you're in, there is something that you can get out of it, no matter what. Even if all you're doing is, like, simple passing, right? Then you should be doing it perfectly every single time. And so it's really about being in the moment that you're in and understanding what it is that you can get out of that to improve. And then the other piece of that, like Jenny and I talked about, was you have to be committed about doing stuff on your own. Like, you have to be committed to your own personal development away from the team. And I'm really wary of the word sacrifice sometimes, because I feel like people feel like they're giving something up for it, but you're giving it up because you want something else. So is it really a sacrifice, or is it just something that you didn't really need as much as you thought? So I would say that doing skills with Jenny was getting me closer to my goal and was developing me, even though I was still helping develop North Shore. So I think that sometimes at that point, it's like you have to be willing and want to put in the extra work if you still want to develop as you see fit towards your own goals.
Yeah, and the more that you can bring others along, like, the more that it'll help you as well. So we used to invite people to skill sessions and try to get them to, like, have the same level of commitment or want to improve and develop their skills. And you're not going to get 100% buy-in, but at least people appreciated that we were working on our skills outside of practice and would sometimes join us. But that doesn't always fit with people's lives. So, but if they see you out there and they see you striving, then that just lifts everybody up, and it gets them a little bit closer to your point of view and what you're trying to achieve as well.
And then they're a little bit more willing to support you at practice when you're trying to do different things as well.
Mm.
Does that answer your question, Olga?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Hope it was helpful.
It was very helpful. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Olga.
Yes, happy birthday.
A reminder to the crowd, it is Olga's birthday.
Thanks, everyone.
No more questions. I just want to thank everyone for coming, and I just want to remind everyone, tune in next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that, because next week, an exciting conversation about jobs and networking, actually with Olga and Mike Bramlett, another North Shore alum. And then Jenny is coming back on May 7th. So
And Kate.
I'll save, and Kate, because I'll save this question for them, but I hear someone hit someone else with their car before a game. But
Okay, well, you kind
don't
of
tell us right now.
Jenny has never had a car, so you kind of gave it
It's
away
just a teaser. Okay. Teaser for next time. Okay.
for next time.
But tune in next week. Love to have you.
All right. Thanks so much for having us. It was really fun. I hope anybody who was on this took something away from it of any value.
Lovely to see all of you. Thank you for having us. And always excited to see North Shore grow and what you guys are doing with the program. So that's awesome.
Great job.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Bye.